I could talk to the animals. Just imagine it, chatting with a chimp and chimpanzee. Imagine talking to a tiger, chatting with a cheetah. What a neat achievement it would be.
In her own way, Jane Goodall does chat with chimps. Her startling discoveries about our closest genetic relatives altered the study of animal behavior, and her leadership has changed the way we view animals and ourselves. Her work gives new awareness to our own humanness and humaneness. Jane Goodall didn't plan on being a scientific leader, or making all the groundbreaking discoveries about chimpanzees. When she was a child, she loved reading Dr. Dolittle and Tarzan of the Apes. Those books made her determined to go to Africa, live with animals, and write books about them. After months of saving money, Jane did go to Africa and started to work for the great anthropologist Louis Leakey. He thought studying chimpanzees in the wild would help with his own research on the primitive man. He selected Jane for this job, even though she had no college education or scientific training. Leakey thought she would have an open mind, which would not be biased by theory. At that time, chimpanzees had only been studied in captivity or through dissection. Prior to Jane starting what was to be a 50-year study of wild chimpanzees, the longest study of wild chimpanzees had lasted for 2 months, and that researcher observed the animals hidden the entire time because it was thought that chimpanzees were too dangerous.
I was 26 years old when I arrived on the shores of Lake Tanganyika in the Gombe Game Reserve in July 1960. I had never seen a chimpanzee before, but that day I got a distinct glimpse of one. It took me 4 more months before I actually got close to a chimpanzee. Biologists at the time thought chimpanzees were just animals. I learned to think of them as individuals with unique personalities. I learned they could feel grief, fear, joy, and love. I even named my chimpanzee companions, and they learned to think of me as a strange but harmless animal who often would give them bananas. I knew I had been accepted by the chimpanzees when a mother let her infant approach me and touch my nose. While at Gombe, I had made a number of radical discoveries. Chimpanzees hunt mammals as food. It was thought that the chimpanzees were vegetarians. Chimpanzees have strong social and family ties and can grieve at the death of a loved one. They can't commit horrible acts of violence on their own kind and even wage war on rival groups. But my most startling discovery took place in October 1960 at Gombe. I observed David Grabiot, a handsome-mouthed chimpanzee, strip a twig of its leaves, then with that twig fish for termites in a mound. I had realized that he had made and used a tool. When I told Louis Leakey about my discovery, he sent back a telegram with these famous words: "Now, we must redefine tool, redefine man, or accept chimpanzees as human." Dr. Leakey convinced me that I needed a doctorate. I became Dr. Jane Goodall in 1966. I was the 12th person ever to earn a doctorate at Cambridge without holding an undergraduate degree. However, whenever I enrolled at Cambridge, I was immediately told I had done everything wrong. I was told I should not name chimpanzees, and I should never say they possess human characteristics and personalities. These were things non-human animals did not possess. I thought that was absolute rubbish. Anyone who has been around animals knows they are individuals and do have personalities. The great biologist Herbert Hind said I changed the way he worked by seeing the animals as individuals. But some people, especially lab workers, still do not accept this. The research program at Gombe has flourished under my leadership and has grown to include science beyond that of animal behavior. Some of the brightest minds in biology have conducted research at Gombe, and has continued my legacy of scientific discoveries. In 1972, I founded the Jane Goodall Institute, a non-profit organization with the goal of improving the treatment of the great apes. A few years later, the Institute's sanctuary program was born to help individual chimpanzees in need, such as those orphaned by poachers, being sold on the black market, or kept chained in backyards as pets.
In 1986, Jane Goodall changed her focus. She attended a conference in Chicago that included a session on conservation. There she learned that chimpanzee habitats everywhere were being destroyed, the horrible bushmeat trade was growing, and chimpanzees were living awful lives in medical laboratories. She was arguably the most famous female scientist in history, revered as much for her work with animals as for inspiring generations of girls and women. But that day, she realized she must strike out and become a leader in conservation and the environment. The legacy of this decision has been profound. Jane is now the most widely recognized and admired advocate for nature conservation in the world. She has been knighted by the Queen of England and is one of 12 leaders who serve as UN Messengers of Peace. Her legacy continues to grow.
My life changed in 1986. Even before the conference in Chicago, I had flown over Gombe and had seen the forest stopped at the edge of the preserve. In order to make a living, the people of the area were destroying the habitat by cutting down trees. I knew if this continued, the animals would disappear. But I also cared deeply for the people of the area and knew they must have a secure livelihood. So I left Gombe, my beloved chimpanzees, and began to travel 300 days a year, and became a leading advocate for nature conservation. I had success. In the part of the world where timber is a valuable commodity, I persuaded the country of Burundi to set aside forest land for animals. In Tanzania, I formed a reforestation project. I traveled zoos and convinced zookeepers to house the animals in more natural habitats, not cages. And only last year, I persuaded the National Institutes of Health to retire its chimpanzees from biomedical research. My work helped save hundreds of chimpanzees from hellish conditions. Many people have told me that my leadership comes from my ability to tell stories. I try to make people understand how amazing animals are and that they deserve respect and to have certain rights. Through my stories, I want people to understand that they, too, can make a positive difference every day if they just try. And this message has reached the younger generation. Through Roots and Shoots, a program that I created, 150,000 young people in 130 countries are excited about protecting the environment and animals. They have listened to me and will put into action my commitment. I think Roots and Shoots is the reason why I came into the world. I think that will be my greatest legacy. Yet, I couldn't have done it without all those years of the chimpanzees, the understanding that led to the blurring of the line between man and beast. I started out to say chimpanzees. I didn't dream of becoming a leader or even have a legacy. Yet, as I studied chimpanzees, I created institutions and opportunities for other scientists. Through my personal example, young men have begun careers in science and conservation. Animals are being given more rights. Children and teens are active in protecting the environment. My work has become the world's work. That is a sound that has not been heard in this room. But it is a sound that needed to be heard. It is a sound that a contented chimpanzee makes as he or she prepares to go sleep in its forest nest. I hope it is a sound that my grandchildren and their grandchildren will always hear in the wild.